see it.
I need to tell you this. It has been 3 days. I still smell the copper. You know that diner downtown? The one with the neon sign. It flickers every 4 seconds. I went there for a late meal. The air smelled like burnt grease. Old floor tiles felt sticky underfoot. A ceiling fan hummed a low drone. Everything felt heavy and very still. My booth was near the back kitchen. The vinyl seat was cracked and cold. I just wanted a simple burger. The waitress looked through me like glass. Her eyes were red and quite watery. She did not write anything down. She just nodded and walked away slowly. I sat there checking my phone. The silence in the room felt thick. It was like breathing in wet wool. No other customers were inside the shop. Just me and the humming fan. I heard a rhythmic thudding sound. It came from behind the swinging doors. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded heavy and very wet. I thought it was just a mallet. Maybe they were tenderizing the beef. The sound was too consistent, though. It felt like a heartbeat on wood. My water arrived in a chipped glass. The liquid had a thin, oily film. I did not take a single sip. Then the smell started to change. It was not grease or onions anymore. It was something sweet and very metallic. It reminded me of a butcher shop, or maybe a fresh car accident site. My stomach did a slow, sick turn. I should have left right then, but I just sat there like a fool. I waited for my plate of food. The waitress returned with a white bowl. She set it down without a word. Inside were 6 perfectly round meatballs. They sat in a clear, thin broth. No sauce. No pasta. Just meat. They were a strange, pale gray color. Small flecks of white poked through them. I picked up my heavy metal spoon. I pushed the edge into the center. The meat did not resist at all. It was soft. It was almost mushy. A thick, dark liquid began to ooze. It was not juice or standard gravy. It was dark, clotted, and very deep red. I saw a small, hard white fragment. I fished it out with my fingers. It was a piece of a fingernail. It was jagged and painted bright blue. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at the kitchen door again. It was cracked open just a little. I saw a man standing very still. He wore a stained white plastic apron. He was holding a large hand grinder. It was bolted to a wooden table. Long strands of pink hair were caught. They were tangled in the metal gears. On the floor was a blue shoe. It was soaked in a dark puddle. The man looked directly at me then. His face was completely blank and pale. He lifted a hand to his mouth. He sucked on a severed human thumb. He did it like it was candy. I looked back down at my bowl. The meatballs were moving in the heat. They seemed to expand and then contract. I realized the white flecks were teeth. Molar teeth pushed through the soft surface. I saw a piece of tattooed skin. It was a small, faded blue anchor. I knew that tattoo from somewhere. It belonged to the girl next door. She had been missing for 2 days. The broth was getting darker and thicker. It started to bubble at the edges. A finger joint floated to the top. It still had the wedding ring attached. I tried to stand up but failed. My legs felt like they were lead. The waitress was standing behind me now. I could hear her breathing in my ear. It sounded like air through wet pipes. She leaned down very close to me. She whispered that I must finish it. She said they worked very hard today. She smelled like a fresh open grave. I looked at the meat on the plate. One ball split open entirely on its own. A human eye rolled into the broth. It was green and very clear. It stared up at me with hate. The man in the apron walked out. He was carrying a large serrated knife. Blood dripped from his elbows to floor. He smiled and showed me his gums. He had pulled out all his teeth. He pointed the knife at my throat. "Eat," he said in a wet voice. I took a bite of the meat. It tasted like salt and iron filings. It felt like wet hair in my mouth. I swallowed and felt it slide down. It was cold and heavy in me. I looked at the bowl and screamed, but no sound came out of me. My throat was full of thick blood. I saw my own fingers on the plate. They were sliced into neat, round coins. I was the next batch of meat. He started the grinder again very loudly. The gears screamed as they took me. I am part of the sauce now.
Next story.
Some debts are paid in skin. Don't look up.
You know my cousin Elias? He lives out in that cabin near the Blackwood Ridge. He sent me a cooler full of venison last week. It looked like normal meat at first. It was deep red and cold. I thought a backstrap for dinner on Tuesday night. The kitchen felt unusually quiet that evening. I remember the smell of the raw flesh. It had a weird, metallic tang to it. It was stronger than usual game meat. I didn't think twice about it then. I just seasoned it and tossed it on the grill. The first bite tasted like copper and old pennies. I thought I just overcooked it. But then I saw the middle of the steak. There were tiny white threads pulsing inside the muscle. They looked like nerves, but they were moving. I felt a sudden wave of heat hit my face. My stomach did a slow, wet somersault. I threw the rest of the plate away. I went to bed feeling heavy and dim. That night I dreamed of wet woods and screaming. I woke up at 3 a.m. covered in sweat. My skin felt tight and very itchy. I looked in the bathroom mirror at dawn. My eyes were bloodshot and leaked yellow fluid. I called Elias, but he didn't pick up. I drove out to his cabin 3 hours later. The woods felt dead and strangely silent. His front door was standing wide open. The air inside smelled like a butcher shop. It was thick with the scent of iron. I found him in the kitchen. He was hunched over the wooden dining table. He didn't turn around when I called his name. He was making a wet, tearing sound. It sounded like someone peeling wet wallpaper. I walked closer to the table very slowly. There was a deer carcass on the floor. It wasn't just dead, it was wrong. The fur was sloughing off in gray sheets. The meat underneath was a bruised, neon purple. It looked like it was boiling from within. Elias finally turned his head toward me. His jaw was hanging by a single tendon. His teeth were jagged and stained dark brown. He wasn't eating the deer anymore. He was sewing pieces of it into his arms. He used fishing line and a rusty needle. He had replaced his bicep with a hoof. The skin was turning black and weeping pus. He looked at me with milky, dead eyes. He tried to speak, but only coughed blood. A thick, black tongue flicked out of his mouth. It had tiny hooks along the edges. I saw the worms then. Thousands of white threads were under his skin. They moved in rhythmic waves like a tide. They were weaving into his own muscle fibers. He wasn't Elias anymore. He was a hive of hungry, pale things. The room began to spin very fast. I saw the sink was full of teeth. He had pulled all of his out. He wanted the deer's teeth instead. He had hammered them into his bleeding gums. The floor was slick with a dark slurry. It was a mix of bile and marrow. I backed away toward the open door. Elias stood up with a sickening crack. His knees bent backward like a forest animal. He let out a high, whistling scream. It sounded like wind through a rib cage. I ran for my truck and didn't look back. I got home and locked every single door. I pulled off my shirt in the hallway. My chest was covered in red welts. I touched one and felt it twitch. A white thread poked through my pore. It was searching for something to grab. I grabbed a pair of sharp tweezers. I pulled on the thread with shaking hands. It kept coming out longer and longer. It was hooked into my very heart. I can feel them moving in my brain now. They are hungry and they want more meat. I think I need to go back outside. The woods are calling my name very loudly. I can taste the copper in my throat. My skin is starting to feel so tight. I need to peel it all off now. I need to be something else entirely.
Next story.
Some debts are paid in skin. Don't look up.
I can barely hold my phone. You remember my old apartment on Mason Street? It was small and quiet. The walls were thin and yellowed. Everything smelled like old grease and floor wax. I liked the silence at first. It felt safe after the long shifts. That changed last Tuesday night. The air in the kitchen felt heavy. It was thick like wet wool. I was making tea to calm down. The stove pilot light flickered blue. It cast long shadows across the linoleum. I heard a wet sliding sound. It came from behind the refrigerator. It sounded like a raw steak hitting tile. I froze with the kettle in hand. The floorboards felt cold beneath my feet. My skin prickled with a sudden chill. Something was in the room with me. I looked down at the stovetop. The metal coils started to glow orange. They looked like angry veins under skin. I saw a reflection in the window. A shape was crouched in the corner. It was pale and slick with fluid. It had too many joints in its arms. Its eyes were milky and wide open. It did not have a nose. Just two raw holes in its face. I tried to scream, but nothing came. My throat felt like it was full of sand. The thing moved with a sickening crunch. Bone scraped against bone as it rose. It smelled like copper and open sewers. It reached out with a long finger. The nail was jagged and stained black. It pointed toward the burning stove element. My body moved without my own permission. I felt like a puppet on thin wires. My legs walked me toward the heat. I fought every single step I took. My muscles screamed in protest and pain. It grabbed the back of my head. Its grip was cold and incredibly oily. The strength in its hand was inhuman. It forced my face down toward the coil. The heat was a wall of needles. I could smell my own hair singe. The air turned gray with acrid smoke. I saw the bright orange spiral rising. It looked like a sun about to explode. I squeezed my eyes shut very tight. Tears evaporated before they could even fall. Then the metal touched my left cheek. The sound was a loud, wet hiss. It sounded like cold water hitting fat. My skin bubbled and popped instantly. I felt the fat underneath start to melt. It ran down my neck like hot wax. The pain was a white-hot lightning bolt. It tore through my brain and soul. I could feel my teeth getting hot. My jawbone felt like it was vibrating. The thing leaned in close to my ear. It made a low, bubbling gurgle sound. It sounded like it was laughing at me. I felt its tongue lick my shoulder. It was rough and dry like sandpaper. It tasted the smoke from my burning flesh. I reached back and grabbed the kettle. I swung it with every ounce of strength. The boiling water splashed across the creature. It let out a high, thin whistle. The grip on my head finally broke. I fell to the kitchen floor hard. Blood was pouring down my ruined face. It felt thick and pulsed with heat. I looked up through one blurry eye. The creature was melting into the shadows. Its skin was sloughing off in wet clumps. It left a trail of black bile behind. I crawled toward the front door, gasping. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. I could hear it scratching inside the walls. It was following me through the dark house. I burst out into the cool night air. The streetlights felt like a holy gift. I ran until my lungs began to bleed. My face was a mask of gore. People on the sidewalk screamed and turned away. I looked into a shop window reflection. My left side was a raw, red crater. You could see the white of my jaw. Bits of the stove coil were embedded. They were fused directly into my cheekbone. The doctors say it was an accident. They think I had a sudden seizure. They say I fell on the burner myself. But I know what I saw that night. I know the taste of that oily skin. I can still hear that wet, sliding noise. It is coming from my hospital vents now. I see the shadow under my bed move. The pilot light in my heart is out. It is coming back to finish the meal. Look at me. Please just look at me. I am not crazy. I am just next. It is standing right behind you. Do not turn around. Do not look at the stove. It wants us both. It wants us well done. It is reaching out right now. Can you feel the heat yet?
Next story.
Some debts are paid in skin. Don't look up.
It started with a simple dinner. Just a standard steak from the local market. The meat looked fine in the light. It was a deep, rich red color. I seared it medium rare. The first bite felt totally normal. Then the iron taste hit my tongue. It was sharper than usual blood. I finished the plate anyway. I felt a strange heat in my gut. It was like swallowing a hot coal. I went to bed early that night. My stomach started churning around midnight. It sounded like wet gravel grinding together. I thought it was just food poisoning. I stumbled into the dark bathroom. The tile felt freezing against my feet. My skin was suddenly slick with sweat. I leaned over the white porcelain bowl. The first cramp folded me in half. It felt like a dull saw blade. I tried to take a deep breath. My throat felt tight and thick. I coughed and tasted copper again. Something solid hit the back of my teeth. I spat it out into the water. It was a small, grayish lump. It looked like a piece of rubber. I realized it was a valve. A human heart valve, perfectly preserved. Then the real pressure started building up. My ribs felt like they might snap. My vision went blurry and dark. I felt a long, wet sliding sensation. It moved up from my deep chest. I opened my mouth to scream. Only a thick, black fluid came out. It smelled like a butcher shop floor. I gripped the sides of the toilet. My knuckles were white and bony. I felt a heavy weight rising. It was larger than my own throat. I gagged until my eyes turned red. A wet, pulsing mass hit the bowl. It was a section of intestine. It was still warm and steaming. It was not my own tissue. This was older, darker, and decaying. I reached down with trembling fingers. I touched the slick, slimy surface. It felt like raw, cold velvet. More pieces began to force their way out. I felt my esophagus stretching thin. I vomited up a ragged human ear. It was followed by a clump of hair. The hair was matted with thick bile. My bathroom floor was a red lake. The smell was thick and cloying. I could not stop the flow. My body was an open exhaust pipe. I felt a sharp pain in my jaw. Something jagged was coming up now. It was a shard of a rib bone. It sliced my lip on the way out. I fell back against the bathtub. My chest felt hollow and empty. I looked into the toilet one last time. A human eye stared back at me. It was floating in a soup of grit. It was pale blue and very clear. I knew that eye from the news. It belonged to the missing girl. She lived 3 houses down from me. The steak was not beef at all. I had eaten her whole last night. Now she was coming back up, piece by bloody, jagged piece. My stomach cramped one final time. I felt a hard, round object rise. It was her jaw with teeth attached. It clattered against the porcelain rim. I tried to stand, but I slipped. I landed in a pile of organs. They were soft and shockingly heavy. I could hear the wet squelching sound. It echoed off the quiet bathroom walls. I started to laugh and then sobbed. The taste of her stayed in me. I can still feel her moving inside. My skin is turning a bruised purple. I am leaking fluid from my pores. I look in the mirror now. My own face looks like a mask. I see her teeth behind my lips. My pulse is slow and very wet. I think I am becoming her tomb. She wants to be whole again. I can feel her knitting together inside. My ribs are shifting to fit her. I am just a wet, fleshy bag. I am an incubator for a ghost. She is screaming through my own throat. The sound is wet and very loud. My neighbors are knocking on the door. I cannot let them see this mess. I am eating my own fingers now. They taste just like the steak did. I am going to be full soon. Very, very full of her. I hope you never feel this. It is a very heavy way to die. It is a very slow way to go. Goodbye, my friend. I have to finish this meal.
Next story.
Some debts are paid in skin. Don't look up.
Next story is yours. Take a look at the shadow in the corner of your room. Are you sure it was that shape a minute ago? Subscribe or be the next in line.